Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you all join in wherever you're joining in from. This is the Bin Checking In podcast about to start. So glad to see you join. I see TikTok is already having some folks joining on. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Hello over on Instagram and YouTube. Let's cue our starting music and begin. Good morning. Today is July the 5th. This is the Bin Checking In podcast. My name is Binyam. This is the podcast where we consider self reflective questions to encourage ourselves and to grow together as we pursue our happiness and learn to be kind to ourselves. Today, we are answering the question, what does your ideal dream life look like? What does your ideal life or your dream life look like? Good morning on Instagram. Good morning on TikTok. Good morning on YouTube Live. Glad to have you guys join in. Again, the question we're answering today is, what does your ideal life or your dream life look like? I would love to hear your guys' suggestions in the chat as well. So do share yours. I'm going to just consider the question first and what it means. And as we do so, I'm just realizing I forgot to press record on the audio, but that's all right. We got this on here. So yes, I would love to hear you guys' thoughts as well. What does your ideal life or your dream life look like? I'm going to share some thoughts on the question. I'm going to share my experience on the question, and I'd love to hear or read your guys' response to this question. Again, it's July the 5th today. And this is episode number 3. So we're still at the early onset of this podcast, but glad to have you guys join in as we consider, what does your ideal dream life look like? So glad to have you join in. So as I look at this question here, right off the bat, I'm thinking, what does your ideal dream life look like? I like this question because it gets one thinking. And dreaming, perhaps. Hello, Reed Warner. The microphone sounds great. I'm glad it sounds great. My dream life consists of a high-paying, steady job and a loving family. I love it. Reed, that is awesome. Thank you for sharing that with me. I like this question because this question almost gets one thinking about what could be. Now, I understand not everyone is in this place because sometimes we are trying to cope with life as it comes at us, trying to cope with life as it evolves. And for many, this is a really difficult thing. So I would say for me, as I consider this question here, I've always been thinking about what could be. As I'm going through various experiences in life, I'm thinking about what sorts of seasons I'm in. And I grew up in a home where my mom and dad, they tried the best that they could, but we were always kind of struggling to make ends meet because of dad's earning potential. And thanks, Alex, for the encouragement on Instagram. I'm thinking of dad tried the best that he could. And yet that meant we were living at a certain point where dreaming was always the norm for me. Dreaming was always the norm. And as dreaming was the norm for me, it meant that I was always dreaming about what could be, right? And it kept me going. It kept me going by way of thinking, what am I striving for? There are certain things I would love to experience that I don't have access to right now, but what could I be aiming for? So this question gets me into that zone of thinking about, how do I want to progress forward? How do I want to work towards things that are beyond my reach right now? And so as I did that, it was more like, what do I have to do to make it there? What do I have to do to make it to such a place to experience these things? My first recollection of doing this was when I was in the summer camp. And you were promised, good morning, Thomas. You were promised a big present if you attended all of the sessions and if you're participating and cooperating and all that kind of stuff. So I worked really hard that summer as I attended this summer camp because I was going to get this prize. All they had to do was promise something big, and I was like, yes, I want something big. And so I looked at what it was that they were promising. I had no idea what it was, but it was big and it was amazing. So I worked really hard to get that prize. However, um, thank you, Christian on TikTok for the encouragement. When I worked towards that prize, I actually worked hard enough that I won first place to be able to get that prize. Guess what that prize was? It was just a poster of two lion cubs. I was so disappointed. I was like, this was not what I worked hard for. But you see, there again, there was that anticipation of something. There was that anticipation of something better, and I want to work towards it. And when I finally got there, sure, I was really discouraged by just a poster for two lion cubs. I was like, no. But I was working for something big. My ideal was that I was going to win something amazing. That was going to change my life. I'll tell you secretly what I was hoping that big prize was. You know those cars that are battery operated for kids, the ones that you can get in and drive around. I thought that was what this big prize was going to be, and it turned out to be anything but. I was like so disappointed. I was like, no, just a poster of two lion cubs. But what does your ideal life or your dream life look like? I love this question because it gets us thinking outside of our current context of where we want to aim for, what we would love to enjoy. And the reality is, one, that we enjoy different experiences. There are some things that we enjoy, some things we don't. But when you have the option of thinking and striving for something, you have this momentum that kind of moves you towards doing something about it. But it first of all starts off with desiring something outside of your context. So, what does my ideal life look like now? I think this question also changes. The answer to this question changes over time, right? Over time, given the many experiences that we all go through, there are some things where, like, okay, that wasn't a good experience. I want to move towards another plan and another goal. And so, towards that end, I would say for me, that has changed over time. Yes, it's changed over time from when I was single at one point in life to now as a dad and looking after a family. I have a different set of experiences of what my ideal life looks like. So, my job was kind of similar to Reed's. He said his job or his dream life would be a high paying job with a high paying, steady job and a loving family. So, Reed, you're already ahead of the game if especially if you're still single and trying to plan for the future, because that's a really stable, ideal life. So, that's fantastic. That's like pretty awesome. I would say for me, my ideal dream life is as follows. For me, mine would be one where I'm able to first and foremost be true to myself. I mentioned this as the first one because I'm thinking of like precedents that would help pave a way where I don't have to work backwards. And I've done a lot of walking backwards in my life. So, again, this is my experience. This is my experience in trying to figure my way forward and how can I progress in such a way that things are like building blocks, right? A good building blocks, and they're put in the right sequence. Because if I do it backwards, then I probably would have to undo some things, and that's what I've had to do in my life. My ideal right now, it would be one, fulfilling on ensuring that my mind space is really in a good place. I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of work where I've had to face a lot of my mistakes and fumbles in my life. I've had plenty. I've had plenty of mistakes. You know, when we consider mistakes, guys, sometimes we think, okay, we put them in a hierarchy. Happy birthday, James. That's amazing. Tris, thanks for encouragement on my voice on TikTok live stream there. Listen, my mistakes cover the whole gamut from really serious to fairly innocuous. I think we usually think in terms of what are the most significant of those mistakes that we've come along and experienced along the way. For me, I've had some mistakes that I've experienced where it actually affected other people who are close to me. And why I consider my mistakes, especially in the consideration of this question of the ideal or dream life looks like, is because I learn from those and then I fashion my new, here's what I want to experience that is meaningful for me. So, in reference to my mistakes, it's mistakes that I've done that have especially affected other people that are close to me that I said, this is very meaningful so that I don't go back here again. And so, for me, what that looks like is good morning, Khaled. My mistakes would be can I operate in my life whereby the connections I make with other people, I don't have to walk backwards on. The connections I make with them would be honest and transparent. So, one of my dream contexts in life is that I could be honest with myself and honest with my world around me. I've lived for such a long time in this zone where, because of the mistakes I've made, mm, it's affected others in a really unfortunate way. So I don't want to have that experience anymore. One of my settings in my dream life looks like me being honest with how I feel and being able to express that with those around me that are really important. That's really important for me. And so, even as I've been thinking about it, um, I'm in this season that I've worked super hard towards. I've worked so hard. I've worked so diligently at ensuring that I am now doing good for myself in my mind. And in doing so, I'm able to now speak out of my truth. Once upon a time, living as a codependent, I did not live my truth that way. ASMR says Sharjeel. Thank you. I I didn't live in that zone once upon a time where I was doing right by others. And was that was super painful, so painful. And so now here I am in this season of life, living in a different zone where I'm like, this really matters to me. This really matters to me that I'm able to say what I actually feel and not fear how people are going to think about me and how they're going to respond to me. And so now I am able to share myself with others in a way that I say, hey, when I tell you this idea, when I tell you this feeling, when I tell you this desire, this is really what's reflective of me inside. And I want to share that with you. And it's such a beautiful thing, guys. In my dream life right now that I'm living, a huge part of it is I'm able to say to people, I I want to share with you the real Biniam, and this is the real Biniam. And I feel so consistent now, internally and externally. Why I place this as my number one experience in my dream life is because that paves the way for the rest of the things along the way. I lived the life where I have had so much acknowledgement and kudos from my outside world that interacts with me, but I couldn't reflect on it inside because it wasn't the real Benny that I was sharing with them. And so I never felt I could enjoy my dream life. But now that I can see those two align, I am so encouraged. Corey says you're so well spoken. Thank you, Corey. OMG, Beniam, I haven't seen you in forever. OMG, I'm so happy. From Sydney, Australia, Chris Constantino. Hello. Glad to have you with me. And Jamie, glad to welcome you back as well. Sunny, hello. Good to have you guys join me on the podcast here for Been Checking In. We're answering the question today. What does your ideal life or your dream life look like? So my first thing I said in my dream life is I want to be consistent with myself internally and externally. That is so important for me. And then the second thing to that would be how can I, in the context of interacting with my world in a very consistent way, how can I now also continue to invest in the world that I live? And what I mean by that is the way that I interact. Not only should it be like consistent by way of honesty, but for me, I also want to be able to interact in a way where it's fantastic building of relationships. Something that I really enjoy is deepening connections. Where can I watch your podcast? Does Chris continue? You can watch it here. This is the podcast right now, actually. And I also have it on my YouTube. So the YouTube is linked to my TikTok, of course. So please do check it out there. That's the medium there. And of course, I'm going to post it on most of the major podcasts. But as I consider The second part, that is for me to grow my relationships with those in my world. Of course, top of these would be maintaining fantastic relationship with my ex. I'm so thankful for her. I speak highly of her. I adore her and I admire her amazing influence in my life. In the midst of so much crap that we've gone through, she's been one of the most gracious people I've known in my life. And so I'm thankful for her. The kids, our kids, I'm so thankful for as well. And I'm watching them as they grow up with a sense of wonder, saying, oh man, it's amazing how they're growing to be these fantastic specimens of humans. And I do hope to see that our relationship continues to grow stronger. Mickey S., welcome to the podcast here on my podcast here, the Been Checking In podcast on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. So that's what you're stepping into here. Glad to have you. We're answering the question, what does your ideal life or your dream life look like? And my first one I said was that I could be consistent internally in my mind and externally, the way I express myself to people. That was really important. The second part is, how can I build on relationships? So with my kids, they're going through different seasons of life now. They're growing older. And as they grow older, one of the things I've noticed in my observation of others as they're growing up is there's a disconnect that happens between the parents and the kids, a disconnect there. And I don't want to see that disconnect in my life. I want to see that kind of consistency as I grow in my relationship with them. So for me, what that looks like is, how can I acknowledge their existence? How can I see them for who they are? How can I affirm them for who they are as they're growing older? How can I grow with them so that the relationship continues to build in a beautiful way where I continue to give them more independence and trust? How can I continue to come alongside and be an encouragement for them in their growing seasons? That's important for me. Now, my kids are still young. They're like only 10, 8, and 7. Adore them, but they're growing to be adults, and it won't be long before they are grown up, and then I'll be like, wow, they are their own individuals. And how can I honor that by letting them live their own lives as they're growing up, instead of saying, this is what you have to do and here's how you have to do it? I don't want to do that. I want to honor them for who they are. And so that is what I am wanting to do in my ideal life, is to make sure that I'm tending to my kids' lives. Now, notice I haven't mentioned anything economical yet. I still have that on my radar, but that doesn't play really high in my priority sequence. You see, my priority sequence is more about mental health, relational health. That's what really matters to me. Now, it's really important that I'm able to fulfill for my family by way of providing for them, because I mean, it's tough to work on good relationships if you're hungry and if you don't have a place to stay, right? So I want to make sure that I'm also looking after the needs of my family. And so, coming out of a pandemic, coming out of the COVID restrictions, it's been a challenge. It's been a huge challenge for trying to make ends meet. And that's played its own stresses in some significant ways that have not been fun. However, given that I am working hard. I've been trying to stretch things along the way. Another element of my dream life or my ideal life would be that I could provide for my family. Because when I'm able to provide for my family, then we can work on these other things. It's a privilege, it's a perk to be able to focus on the things that I've been describing so far, but only because I've been able to invest in those things that are necessary, right? So I've got a good group of friends that I have deepening friendship with. I have growing relationships with my kids, and I so appreciate them. I so value them. But the other component in answering this question, what does your ideal life or your dream life look like? For me, would be that I'm looking after the needs of my family, but not just looking after them by way of we're just making it. My ideal would be that I would be able to earn more than enough so that we can do some extra things along the way that are fun together, right? For me, I value community. One of my friends, he is amazing, and I so admire his hospitality and his generosity. He does really well for himself. He could be living at a, in a nicer house. He could be driving nicer cars. He could be, spending his money in ways that most would be like, that's my ideal. But guess what he does with his income? He invested in community. He invested in making space in his home for our group of friends to meet together on a weekly basis. He creates community and he makes space for a community to get together. He buys food and drinks to facilitate our times together. I love this commitment that he has, and it inspires me. It inspires me to say that is a really great expression of how he's living his ideal because it is rich. He has a rich life because of the community that he's built that I get to be a part of. So, relationships is also really important, but in considering relationships, I also would say next is the economical facilitation of seeing all that playing together. And then um, not only making it buy economically, but also making it buy in a way where you're thriving. I mean, I made up a list of 5 things that I want to accomplish within the next year, given this business plan that I'm in the midst of, which you can find out on my website, which is bennyamasters.com. Feel free to check that out. A shameless plug. And hello, Patty. How are you? So, along those lines, I want to thrive as well economically. I want to earn more than enough so that I'm not only looking after my own needs, but I also have the option of encouraging someone else and helping them in their experience. So, what does generosity for me look like in the midst of my ideal life? I would love to invest in others' lives. I'd love to hear about a single mom who is struggling and be able to look after her needs. I'd love to be able to encourage a university student who's just trying to make ends meet while they're studying. I would love to come and alleviate that way. That's really important for me. So, that's something I'm striving for. I've got 5 things on my big goals list. I call my big goals my accomplishment manifesto. That's what I've been calling it. So, towards that end, um, one of those is I want to buy my dream vehicle for cash. That would be amazing. I don't think it's a bad thing to strive for experiencing these things in life. I think that's a beautiful thing. So I want to buy my dream vehicle with cash. So, of course, my dream vehicle is a Tesla Model X. And oh man, that's going to be a lot of money, but I'm striving for that. I want to be able to use my entire earnings for Uber because I'm going to keep on driving for Uber. I want to use my entire earnings driving for Uber and donated to a couple of key causes or organizations in my community. The first one being the Alpha House. And hey, Alex, I want to diversify my income from Uber and send half of it towards the Alpha House, which is an organization that serves our marginalized community here in my city. I love the work that they do, such integral work, and man, I want them to feel support that way, right? Second thing I want to invest in is another cause called Not in My City, which is committed to stopping sexual exploitation, and that's another cause that's really dear to my heart. So I wanted to see that. So that's my second item on my accomplishment manifesto is to take my entire earnings and invest it and these 2 organizations. Another item on my accomplishment manifesto is to send my ex, the kids, and their grandma to Disneyland, I think, the one in Florida. I would love to send them there on an all expenses paid trip. And that would be so brilliant. That's part of my ideal or dream life. And another item on my accomplishment manifesto is I want to be able to communicate hope to 10,000 people tangibly this next year. By this time next year, I want to hear back from 10,000 people. And so that's something that keeps me going. And so I'm inspired by these big goals, right? There's just so many big things that I want to experience and accomplish. And so that's what looking forward to something big in the future that you're looking forward to. Oh man, it keeps my momentum going. It keeps hope alive, right? It keeps you in that striving mode. And so that's something I really want to experience. So for me, my ideal world, my ideal dream life, it looks like me doing well for myself first and foremost, that my mind space is consistent with how I can express myself externally. That really means a lot to me, that I can speak my mind and then be able to share with others around me, with those in my world. That's a really important non-negotiable that I value immensely. Second to that is what's my community like? What's those that I'm interacting with? how can I interact with them in such a way whereby I'm investing hope, I'm investing encouragement, I'm investing kindness. These are characteristics that I want to share with those around me, from those closest to me, like my family, to my group of friends. That's so important. And finally, how can I do this all in the context of investing in relationships? I love doing that. And doing that economically is part of that dynamic. How can I invest in such a way where I can say to a friend, let me take you out for a meal? That's a wonderful investment in them, right? But to do that, you've got to have your economic world in order. And so it's a fantastic thing. It's a lovely thing to be able to afford going out for a meal. It's a fantastic thing being able to put gas in your tank and not worry about it, especially when gas prices are so expensive right now, right? So these are some of the things I've come to idealize in my dream life. And it starts off by the imagination, thinking up these dynamics, right? And you want to experience what that looks like. And then you start making some plans to say, how do I get there? So that's why I love this question today. What does your ideal life or your dream life look like? So Reed was already sharing with us earlier that his dream life is consisting of a high paying job. Nothing wrong with that. That's really important because that's an important part of being able to facilitate your dream life and having options. Secondly, he says he'd love to have a steady job, so a high paying steady job, and finally a loving family. That is so critical. You've got those two components that I was addressing, right? Your relational life and your economic life. When those two find a happy connection, it's fantastic. I think part of that for me would also look like making sure that my mind space is in a really healthy place, that I'm able to interact and connect with my world in a meaningful way. It's so important. But what are some of your guys' ideal contexts? Like what does your dream life look like? What's important to you? That's what it gets you to ask, is what is really important to you? What do you want to experience or maintain or facilitate or draw out? Like, these are really important components as we consider what our dream life, our ideal life looks like. I would love to hear from you guys in your comments. Leave them behind on my YouTube channel, on this video, on Instagram for sure. I'm going to post a recording of this there. And of course, on my TikTok channel. As I bring this episode 3, to a close on the Binge Checking In podcast, may I encourage you, part of this whole context in imagining what could be with our dream life, our ideal life, it has a real key to unlocking what a person's happy place is, doesn't it? It has that ability to open that threshold and saying, what does your happy place in life look like? Your happy place in life would be what you value, that gives you that sense of, my life is finally at this happy place. I've given you some of mine. Happiness is one of those things that a lot of us want to experience. And as we strive for what our happiness looks like, sometimes it takes us in a certain season, right? It takes us in a certain season where it's like, oh man, this is what I would feel would change my disposition internally. I have I have put together a mini course of how I'm able to pursue and experience my happiness over the long haul on my website. It's called How to Truly Be Happy Without Faking It. This is something I had to learn for myself because for the longest time, this is a tough thing for me. I was happy, but not fully and all the way happy deep inside, because I couldn't be honest with my world until I came to understand some key principles or ingredients. So I put together a little mini course called How to Truly Be Happy Without Faking It. You can find it on my website, beniamasters.com. I want to offer this resource to you for free because I would love for you to also experience the same happiness. Now, fair warning as you consider this resource that I'm offering to you for free. It's on my website. By all means, go down and download it. I would love for you to experience it. But the key 3 ingredients that I include in that resource are not for the faint of heart. Listen carefully. We'd love to see things offered for free or an easy how to get to a certain destination. The ones I offer you they are actually hard work. I want you to hear that from the outset. So you're like, wait a second, this is how you get to happiness? That's a lot of work. Yes, it's a lot of work. I want you to know that. But I want to lead you or guide you along the pathway that I experienced to getting to this happy state that I am enjoying without any disillusion um, expectations. And so there are three key ingredients that I have there. They take a lot of work. I would love to partner with you in working towards your happiness, but the kind of happiness that I want to see for you, it's not the momentary, it's like the deep kind that resonates for a long haul. So go check that out on my website, biniamashers.com. And I would love for you to be able to experience this deep happiness, even as we're considering today's question: what does your ideal dream life look like? Guys, I want to thank you so much for joining me on the Instagram live stream, on the TikTok live stream, and of course on the YouTube live feed. I enjoy these moments as we reflect on self reflecting questions that enable us to grow in our awareness of ourselves, to be able to be kind to ourselves, and to pursue our happiness. And I'd love that for you guys. I'm trying to do these every day, so continue to join me here. I'm trying to aim for the same time frame. This is an early time here in my area of the world, 7 a.m. in the morning, 7:30 a.m. in the morning. That's kind of early, but I'd love for you guys to join me there and be a part of this conversation. Thank you for joining in. Today was episode number 3. We're answering the question, what does your ideal life or your dream life look like? I look forward to growing with you guys. You guys are at the outset of this podcast, and I'm so thankful that you were able to join in. I'm trying to make a website for my business, says Sharjeel. How did you make yours? Send me a DM, and I'll send you the links of what I found really helpful. Maybe we can even jump on a call together, and I can encourage you that way. For today, July the 5th, I want to wish you a fantastic Monday. I hope it goes super well. And I have a lot of love for you guys. I have a lot of desire to see your good. So continue to stick around as we share some more episodes in the future of how we grow together, show ourselves kindness, and pursue our happiness. Love you guys. I will see you on the next episode. I'm going to say bye to my TikTok live feed first. Thank you guys. Love you. We'll see you soon. I will see you tomorrow morning. And my Instagram. Thanks for joining in, you guys. I so appreciate you. I will talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for joining in on this episode of the Checking In podcast. And my YouTube, thank you for being here as well. I so appreciate you guys. Feel free to leave me a comment along the way. I'd love to hear and reflect on your thoughts as well. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye for now. And of course, in the recording here, I missed a